In 2022, a small community in West Palm Beach was rocked by one of the most shocking scandals imaginable. A preacher and his wife's bridesmaid conspired to murder her so they could be together. What began as an illicit affair ended in betrayal, bloodshed, and justice served cold. How could someone entrusted with guiding others spiritually commit such a heinous act? And what drove two people to plot the death of a woman who trusted them completely? Welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where we delve into the darkest corners of human behavior to uncover tales of deception, betrayal, and justice. We bring you a new story that will leave you questioning how far people can stray from morality, and what it truly means to seek redemption. In the heart of Florida lies the quiet town of West Palm Beach, a place where life moves at its own gentle pace. It's a community deeply rooted in faith, where Sundays are reserved for reflection and worship, and neighbors know one another by name. At the center of it all stood Graceful Hope Church, a sanctuary that had been a beacon of light for generations. Its towering steeple could be seen from miles away, a symbol of hope and guidance for those who sought solace within its walls. Leading this congregation was Pastor Robert S. Brown, a man whose presence commanded respect and admiration. He was known for his powerful sermons, his warm smile, and his ability to connect with people on a personal level. Whether he was counseling a grieving widow or offering words of encouragement to a struggling family, Robert seemed to embody everything a spiritual leader should be. His marriage to Josephine only added to his image as a devoted husband and a pillar of virtue. Josephine was the kind of woman everyone adored, gentle, compassionate, and full of life. She brought joy wherever she went, and her love for Robert was evident in the way she spoke about him, looked at him, and supported his work at the church. Together, they appeared to have a relationship built on trust, mutual respect, and unwavering commitment. Their wedding just months earlier had been a celebration not only of their union but also of the promise they represented to their community, a promise of love, faithfulness, and partnership. But even in the most idyllic settings, darkness can take root when no one is looking. Beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect marriage lay secrets that would soon come to light, shaking the very foundation of the world Robert and Josephine had built together. Among those closest to them was Tracy T. Allen, Josephine's bridesmaid and confidant. To anyone watching, Tracy seemed like the ideal friend, loyal, supportive, and always there when Josephine needed her. Yet, behind closed doors, Tracy harbored feelings far removed from friendship. Her envy of Josephine's life grew over time, feeding into emotions she couldn't ignore. And then, something changed. Something dangerous. What began as misplaced affection soon evolved into something far more destructive. Robert and Tracy found themselves drawn to each other in ways neither could resist. Their connection started innocently enough, perhaps with shared conversations or moments of vulnerability. But as their bond deepened, so did their willingness to cross lines that should never be crossed. The affair became consuming, blinding them to the consequences of their actions. They convinced themselves that what they felt for one another was real, that it justified betraying the people who loved and trusted them most. As their secret grew, so did their desperation. The weight of guilt pressed down on them, yet instead of stepping back, they made choices that would alter countless lives forever. What started as an illicit relationship took a turn that neither Robert nor Tracy could have imagined when they first gave in to temptation. Their desire to be together led them down a path filled with calculated decisions and chilling intentions. For Robert, the man who preached about morality and forgiveness, the irony of his actions would later become impossible to ignore. And for Tracy, the bridesmaid who once stood beside Josephine vowing to support her, the betrayal cut deeper than anyone could have anticipated. The events that followed would leave an entire community searching for answers. How could two individuals entrusted with so much trust and admiration orchestrate something so cruel? What drove them to make choices that defied every principle they claimed to uphold? These questions lingered in the air long after the truth came to light, leaving scars that may never fully heal. This story is about more than just a crime. It's about the fragility of trust, the length some will go to for love or lust, and the devastating ripple effects of betrayal. As we peel back the layers of this tragedy, prepare yourself for a journey into the minds of those involved. You'll witness how easily deception can weave itself into the fabric of everyday life, and you'll understand why this case continues to haunt those who hear it. Stay with me now, because what comes next is a tale of passion, obsession, and ultimately, justice served in the wake of unimaginable loss. Pastor Robert S. Brown was a man who seemed destined for greatness from the moment he stepped into Graceful Hope Church. He had an undeniable charm, a way of making people feel seen and heard, as though their struggles mattered deeply to him. His sermons weren't just words, they were messages that resonated with the congregation, touching hearts and inspiring change. Over time, he became more than a pastor. He became a leader, a confidant, and a symbol of hope in West Palm Beach. People admired him not only for his faith but also for the life he appeared to lead alongside his wife, Josephine. To those who knew him, Robert was proof that goodness still existed in the world. Tracy T. Allen, on the other hand, was someone everyone trusted without question. As Josephine's bridesmaid and closest friend, she had been there through thick and thin. She helped plan the wedding, stood by Josephine's side on her special day, and celebrated the joy of seeing her best friend find happiness with Robert. Tracy presented herself as selfless and supportive, always ready with a kind word or a listening ear. But beneath her cheerful exterior lay feelings she kept carefully hidden, feelings of envy, longing, and dissatisfaction. While outwardly she cheered for Josephine's happiness, inwardly, she wrestled with emotions she couldn't quite name. The affair between Robert and Tracy didn't happen overnight. It started subtly, almost innocently, during the whirlwind of wedding preparations. There were moments when their paths crossed more often than usual, late-night discussions about seating arrangements, whispered jokes during rehearsals, shared glances that lingered just a little too long. At first, neither of them thought much of it. After all, they were simply working together to ensure Josephine's big day went perfectly. But as the weeks passed, those small interactions grew into something neither could ignore. Flirtation turned into flirtation with purpose. A casual conversation became charged with meaning. Before either of them realized what was happening, they found themselves drawn into a web of attraction and secrecy. Their meetings moved beyond planning sessions and into private spaces, quiet corners of the church, empty parking lots, secluded spots where no one could see them. Each encounter fueled their growing obsession, pushing them further away from the lives they were supposed to cherish. For Robert, it was exhilarating, a chance to escape the pressures of being a pastor and indulge in something forbidden. For Tracy, it was validation, a way to feel desired and important in a way she never had before. As their relationship deepened, so did their guilt. They tried to convince themselves that what they felt was real, that their connection justified betraying the people who loved and trusted them most. But the weight of their actions pressed down on them, twisting their desires into something darker. The more time they spent together, the more they began to resent the presence of Josephine. She wasn't just a wife or a friend anymore, she was an obstacle standing in the way of the life they wanted. It started with idle thoughts. What if Josephine weren't around? What if they could be free to pursue their relationship openly, without judgment or consequences? Those fleeting ideas soon grew into conversations, whispered under the cover of darkness. Text messages exchanged between them revealed a chilling progression. "We'll never truly be free unless she's gone," Robert once wrote. Tracy responded with agreement, adding, "I've already looked into how we can make it look like an accident." These weren't mere fantasies anymore, they were plans, carefully crafted and coldly calculated. Their paranoia grew as well. Every creak of the floorboards, every unexpected phone call, every glance from a neighbor made them fear discovery. They deleted messages obsessively, avoided being seen together in public, and fabricated excuses whenever questioned about their behavior. Yet, despite their efforts to stay hidden, cracks began to show. Mutual friends noticed shifts in their demeanor, Tracy's jealousy bubbling to the surface, Robert's distractedness during sermons. Even Josephine, oblivious to the betrayal unfolding around her, mentioned feeling uneasy at times, though she couldn't put her finger on why. What drove two people to entertain such unthinkable thoughts? How does infidelity transform into murder? Was it love that bound Robert and Tracy together, or was it something far less noble? Perhaps it was desperation, greed, or even a twisted sense of entitlement. Whatever the reason, their decision to act on those thoughts would leave an indelible mark on everyone involved. The tension surrounding them continued to build, reaching a breaking point neither could turn back from. They convinced themselves that eliminating Josephine was the only solution, the only path to freedom. Plans were laid out step by step, each detail meticulously considered. Sedatives purchased discreetly, timelines mapped out, alibis prepared, all while maintaining the appearance of normalcy to those around them. It was a dangerous game, one that required precision and nerve. And yet, despite the risks, they pressed forward, blinded by their own desires. You might wonder, at what point do people lose sight of morality entirely? When does the line between right and wrong blur so completely that committing the unimaginable feels like the only option? For Robert and Tracy, that line had vanished long ago, replaced by a singular focus on achieving the future they envisioned for themselves. But as history has shown us, actions taken in secrecy rarely remain hidden forever. The truth always finds its way to the surface, and when it does, the consequences are often devastating. This is where our story takes a darker turn. The seeds of betrayal planted months earlier were about to bear fruit, setting off a chain of events that would shock an entire community. The truth began to unravel in ways Robert and Tracy could never have anticipated. It started with small cracks, details that didn't quite add up, moments that seemed off when pieced together. Investigators, led by Detective Maria Alvarez, were meticulous in their work. They combed through phone records, uncovering a trail of incriminating text messages between Robert and Tracy. Messages filled with coded language, whispered plans, and chilling admissions painted a picture far darker than anyone could have imagined. "We'll never truly be free unless she's gone," one message read. Another detailed how they could stage Josephine's death to look like an accident. These weren't the words of grieving loved ones, they were the cold calculations of conspirators. Surveillance footage played a crucial role as well. Cameras from a nearby gas station captured Robert disposing of items shortly after Josephine's disappearance. When detectives recovered those items, they found traces of blood that would later be matched to Josephine through forensic testing. Receipts for sedatives purchased weeks earlier tied directly to Robert, raising red flags about his intentions. Witnesses came forward too, sharing details they had initially dismissed as insignificant. A neighbor recalled seeing Robert acting strangely on the night of Josephine's death. Friends of Josephine spoke of Tracy's growing jealousy, her cutting remarks, and her odd behavior in the months leading up to the tragedy. Each piece of evidence was like a thread pulled from a sweater, slowly unraveling the carefully constructed lie Robert and Tracy had tried so desperately to maintain. And then there was the night itself, the night Josephine lost her life. Investigators pieced together the horrifying sequence of events. Sedatives had been slipped into her drink, rendering her unconscious. She was then struck with enough force to leave bruises before being left to drown in what was meant to look like a tragic accident. The sheer brutality of it shocked even seasoned detectives. This wasn't just a crime of passion, it was premeditated, calculated, and merciless. For those who loved Josephine, the revelation was unbearable. Her family, friends, and congregation had believed her death was a terrible twist of fate, a random, senseless tragedy. To learn otherwise, to discover that her own husband and best friend had orchestrated her demise, was devastating. When the news broke, it sent shockwaves through West Palm Beach. The community reeled, struggling to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the monster he had become. Graceful Hope Church, once a sanctuary of peace and hope, became a place of mourning and disbelief. Parishioners who had looked up to Robert now questioned everything they had believed about him. How could someone entrusted with guiding others spiritually commit such an act? And how could Tracy, someone who had stood beside Josephine on her wedding day, turn against her so completely? Neighbors and friends reacted with a mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. One close friend described feeling physically ill upon learning the truth. "You don't expect this kind of thing to happen in your own backyard," she said. "These were people we trusted, people we admired. To think they were capable of something like this." Her voice trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Others expressed outrage at the depth of the betrayal, not just of Josephine, but of everyone who had placed their faith in Robert and Tracy. The arrests came swiftly once the evidence mounted. Detectives moved in, apprehending both Robert and Tracy within days of each other. The moment of arrest was surreal, a stark reminder that no one is above the law. Handcuffs clicked shut around Robert's wrists as cameras flashed outside the courthouse. He wore a blank expression, his usual charisma stripped away, replaced by the weight of what he had done. Tracy, on the other hand, broke down in tears, pleading innocence despite the overwhelming evidence against her. Neither of them could escape the reality of their actions any longer. For the community, the arrests brought a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that justice was finally being pursued, but sorrow that it had come to this at all. The image of Robert standing before his congregation, preaching about love and forgiveness, now felt hollow and hypocritical. The memories of Tracy laughing with Josephine at gatherings, pretending to be her closest ally, were tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. People wondered how they hadn't seen the signs, how they had missed the truth hiding in plain sight. Yet, as painful as it was, the discovery of the affair and the murder plot answered questions that had haunted everyone since Josephine's death. Why had she been so uneasy in her final days? Why had Tracy seemed so jealous, so resentful? Why had Robert appeared distracted, distant? Now, the answers were clear and heartbreaking. What had seemed like isolated moments of tension or moodiness now fit together like pieces of a puzzle, forming a picture of deceit and destruction. This was the climax of the story, the moment when the facade crumbled, exposing the raw, ugly truth beneath. It was a moment that demanded accountability, not just from Robert and Tracy, but from everyone who had witnessed the warning signs and failed to act. As the investigation continued, more secrets came to light, further deepening the tragedy. But even as the full scope of the betrayal emerged, one question lingered: how does a person live with themselves after committing such an act? For Robert and Tracy, the answer would come in the form of justice served, but for Josephine's loved ones, the pain would remain forever. The fallout from the revelation of Robert and Tracy's crimes sent shockwaves through West Palm Beach, leaving no corner of the community untouched. For the members of Graceful Hope Church, the betrayal cut especially deep. They had placed their trust in Robert, looking to him for guidance, wisdom, and moral leadership. He was supposed to be a man of integrity, someone who embodied the values he preached from the pulpit. Instead, they learned that he had been living a double life, one filled with deception, infidelity, and ultimately murder. Many parishioners struggled to reconcile the pastor they thought they knew with the man now sitting in a courtroom, accused of orchestrating his wife's death. Some stopped attending services altogether, unable to step foot in a church that had become synonymous with scandal. Others stayed, clinging to their faith even as they grappled with feelings of anger, disappointment, and disillusionment. Josephine's loved ones were left reeling, trying to make sense of a tragedy that felt almost too cruel to comprehend. For Josephine's family, the pain was immeasurable. They had lost not only a beloved daughter, sister, and friend but also the chance to say goodbye under honest circumstances. The idea that her death had been staged as an accident, and that those closest to her were responsible, was a wound that would never fully heal. As news of the case spread, it quickly became a national sensation. Dubbed "the pastor's sinful secret" by the media, the story captivated audiences across the country. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, eager to capture every detail of the unfolding drama. Talk shows debated the morality of Robert's actions, while true crime podcasts dissected the evidence piece by piece. Social media exploded with theories, accusations, and expressions of disbelief. How could someone entrusted with guiding others spiritually commit such a heinous act? What did this say about human nature, about the capacity for evil lurking within even the most seemingly virtuous individuals? The case dominated headlines for weeks, drawing comparisons to other high-profile scandals involving religious leaders. Yet, what set this story apart was its sheer audacity, the cold, calculated way in which Robert and Tracy had carried out their plan, believing they could outsmart everyone around them. When the trial finally began, it was as dramatic and emotional as anyone could have predicted. Prosecutor Sarah Thompson laid out the case with precision, presenting a mountain of evidence that left little room for doubt. Text messages between Robert and Tracy revealed their chilling discussions about eliminating Josephine. Forensic experts testified about the sedatives found in her system and the traces of her DNA recovered from Robert's car trunk. Surveillance footage showed Robert disposing of items linked to the crime. Witness after witness painted a picture of two people consumed by obsession and willing to do whatever it took to achieve their twisted version of freedom. Defense attorneys fought back fiercely, attempting to downplay their client's culpability. They argued that the text messages were misinterpreted, that the forensic evidence was circumstantial, that there was no concrete proof tying either Robert or Tracy directly to Josephine's death. But their efforts fell flat in the face of overwhelming facts. Sarah Thompson's closing arguments were particularly powerful. She spoke directly to the jury, reminding them of the trust Josephine had placed in both Robert and Tracy, and how that trust had been shattered in the most unimaginable way. "This isn't just a case of murder," she said. "It's a case of betrayal so profound that it defies belief. These defendants didn't just take a life, they destroyed countless others in the process." The moment the guilty verdicts were read aloud in court remains etched in the memories of everyone present. Gasps echoed through the room as the judge announced that Robert had been convicted of first-degree murder and Tracy of conspiracy to commit murder. Cameras flashed as reporters scrambled to capture the reactions of the defendants. Robert sat stoically, his expression unreadable, while Tracy broke down in tears, clutching tissues in trembling hands. In the gallery, Josephine's family embraced one another, relief mingling with sorrow. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring her back. It couldn't undo the damage that had been done. For the community of West Palm Beach, the trial marked the beginning of a long healing process. Conversations turned toward forgiveness, accountability, and the importance of vigilance, even when it comes to those we hold in high regard. Some wondered if Graceful Hope Church could ever reclaim its former glory, while others believed that redemption was still possible. What was certain, however, was that the scars left by this tragedy would remain visible for years to come, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked desire, misplaced loyalty, and the lengths some will go to for love or lust. As the dust settled, one question lingered in the minds of many: how does a community move forward after something like this? The answer, it seemed, would require time, patience, and a collective effort to rebuild what had been broken. When the judge delivered the sentences, it was a moment that brought both closure and reflection. Robert S. Brown was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, a punishment befitting the gravity of his crime. For a man who had once stood before a congregation preaching about redemption, there would be no second chances for him. His days of freedom were over, replaced by the cold, unyielding walls of a prison cell. Tracy T. Allen received a sentence of 30 years behind bars, a fraction of what Robert faced but still a lifetime in its own right. As they were led away from the courtroom, the weight of their actions settled heavily on their shoulders. Justice had been served, at least in the eyes of the law. But no verdict, no sentence, could ever undo the irreversible loss of Josephine's life. The aftermath of the trial left many grappling with difficult emotions. On one hand, there was relief that accountability had been achieved. The system had worked as it should, exposing the truth and holding those responsible answerable for their actions. Yet, on the other hand, there was an undeniable sense of emptiness. No amount of legal retribution could bring Josephine back or erase the pain her family and friends endured. Her absence created a void that nothing could fill, a reminder that while justice can punish wrongdoing, it cannot restore what has been lost. The fragility of trust became a recurring theme in conversations about the case. People wondered how two individuals could betray someone so deeply, not just through infidelity but through an act as final and irreversible as murder. It was a sobering lesson about human nature, the capacity for greed, jealousy, and selfishness that can fester when left unchecked. This story raises questions that linger long after the headlines fade. Can someone truly recover from such a profound breach of faith? Is it possible to rebuild trust after discovering that those closest to you were capable of such betrayal? Or are some wounds simply too deep to heal? These are questions without easy answers, ones that force us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. Relationships are built on trust, love, and mutual respect. When those foundations crumble, the fallout can be catastrophic, not just for the individuals involved but for entire communities. In this case, the ripple effects extended far beyond Robert, Tracy, and Josephine, touching everyone who knew them and even strangers who followed the case from afar. It serves as a stark reminder of how interconnected we all are and how fragile those connections can be. As for Robert and Tracy, their lives behind bars have unfolded largely out of public view. Reports indicate that Robert has struggled to adjust to prison life, often isolating himself from others. Perhaps he spends his days reflecting on the choices that led him here, though whether he feels genuine remorse remains unknown. Tracy, meanwhile, has reportedly formed alliances within the prison system, finding ways to navigate her new reality despite the length of her sentence. Both face the consequences of their actions every day, living reminders of the price of their betrayal. Yet, no matter how many years pass, they will never escape the knowledge of what they did, or the lives they destroyed in the process. And then there is Josephine. Though she is gone, her memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved her. Friends describe her as a beacon of kindness, someone whose warmth and compassion touched everyone fortunate enough to know her. She was the kind of person who made the world brighter simply by being in it. Her legacy is one of love, a love that inspired loyalty, joy, and admiration. Even now, her family continues to honor her memory, sharing stories of her laughter, her generosity, and her unwavering spirit. They refuse to let her be defined solely by the manner of her death, choosing instead to celebrate the beauty of her life. In the end, this story is a testament to the complexity of human relationships and the devastating consequences of betrayal. It challenges us to consider the values we hold dear: trust, loyalty, integrity, and the lengths we must go to protect them. While justice has been done, the scars left behind will remain for generations to come. And perhaps that is the most poignant takeaway, that while people may move forward, they rarely do so unchanged. For the community of West Palm Beach, for Josephine's loved ones, and for anyone who hears this tale, the lessons of the pastor's sinful secret will endure, a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most polished surfaces. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most heartbreaking and shocking true crime stories I've ever encountered. If you're sitting there as stunned by these events as I am, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. What stood out to you most? Do you think justice was truly served in this case? Or do you believe there were moments along the way where this tragedy could have been prevented? Stories like this remind us how fragile trust can be and how quickly lives can change when that trust is broken. Your perspective matters, and I always appreciate hearing from you. If you enjoyed this episode of Vic's True Crime Stories, I hope you'll consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. It means so much to me to have your support as we explore these gripping tales together. And if you're hungry for more, don't miss our latest episode. This one will leave you questioning everything and everyone involved.